Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become the stepping stones to growth and clarity. I'm your host, Ezekiel Iferia, and today's guest, Ken Davenport, had what many would consider the dream life in his early 40s. He was a successful tech CEO and serial entrepreneur, but behind the scenes, he was facing a serious happiness problem. He calls it his obituary moment. The sudden realization that the story he was writing with his life wasn't one worth reading. That moment led him to quit his company, co-found a non-profit called Mission Edge, and dive deep into Stoic philosophy. He's now an author and speaker who helps others build resilience and find their true purpose. He's here to talk about the courage it takes to rewrite your own story when the current one just isn't working. So, Ken, it's a real pleasure to have you on FailCraft. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ezekiel. Nice to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, let's dive in. Your story centers around this powerful concept of an obituary moment. You were a successful CEO in your 40s, but you realized you weren't living the life you wanted. Can you take us back to that specific realization? What did that internal failure of purpose feel like in the moment?
Well, I I think it was something of an existential crisis, if you will. I think, you get to a point where you realize that the life you're living looks good on the outside and maybe checks a lot of boxes in terms of the expectations that people have for you, society, your family, certainly financially, but you have this nagging feeling that you're actually not living the life you were supposed to be living. And I think, I think folks have moments where they feel that way. And oftentimes you bury it because it's very uncomfortable to suddenly deal with the notion that what you've invested your time and energy into may not actually be what you were supposed to be doing all along or what you wanted to do all along. So I think it felt a lot like, I don't know, what people kind of conventionally think of as a midlife crisis, where you are kind of looking at your life and thinking, actually, I've got more behind me than I have in front of me, and I need to figure out what do I want to be doing with the next 20, 25 years of my life, and how do I look back at my life at the end and feel like I've done something worthwhile, that I've written a story that that people would want to read. And I think at the time that I had this moment of this moment of kind of clarity around the fact that I wasn't writing the story I wanted to leave behind and that I had to make some dramatic changes in order to make that happen.
So, Ken, you mentioned that you were living a life focused on success, money, prestige. So when you decided to quit, what was the hardest part of letting go of that identity? Did you feel like you were losing yourself?
Yeah, I think that, as I come to look at it now, and I didn't have this clarity at the time, but as I look back on it, I realized that I was very much like many people driven by my ego. And I mean ego in the sense that the way Carl Jung talks about it, the idea that this is the power in your personality that drives you forward, that makes you want to be successful, that makes you want to create structure and order in your life and makes you want to, get things done. And I was very good at doing that. I was very good at building things. I was very good at running things, growing things, and I had a lot of success in that area. But I think what I realized is that that was satisfying, but only to a point. But deep down, I felt like I was somewhat unmoored to a greater purpose, that after a while, it was harder and harder to get out of bed in the morning because I was just not really connected to the work that I was doing, even though it looked good on the outside. And so I think part of it is just coming to terms with the fact that sometimes the persona you develop, the role that you play in life is motivated by things that are necessary. Like, it's necessary to make money. It's necessary to put food on the table. But the question is, how much do you need, and what are you doing to make it? And what are you doing with the hours of your day where you are being productive? What kind of value are you creating? And what I realize is that if it's just about money, it's really not value at all, because at the end of the day, if I'm not helping others to be better, or improving the lives of those around me, then I'm really not doing anything of real lasting meaning.
All right, really great response there, Ken. So, how did your study of Stoicism specifically help you navigate that transition? Was there a particular Stoic principle that gave you the courage to make such a huge leap?
Yeah, I think that the foundation of Stoicism really is really powerful for those who want to take control of their lives and make affirmative change. I mean, the basic concept is that you can't control what happens to you in life, but you can control your reaction. So you have control over yourself, and the decisions that you make about what you do and don't do. And what one of the great Stoics, Epictetus, came up with this concept called the dichotomy of control. And I think at the core, that helped me to realize that if you focus on external things, if you focus on success from the outside, in other words, if you focus on selling your company, or having people love you, or having people read your books, or whatever the external validation is, you're basically putting the control of your life in other people's hands. And what Epictetus basically said is, look, all we have control over is ourself, our opinions, our reactions, our perceptions. Everything that is internal to us is what we have control of. And what we don't have control of is pretty much everything else. It's everybody else. It's the wider world. It's what happens in the economy. It's what happens, in the behavior of others. We cannot control that. All we can control is how we show up. And so as I realized, when I had this kind of moment of thinking about my story, I realized that I think I'd been focusing a lot of my effort in getting the approval of others, and thinking about what other people thought of me, or what other people saw in me. And I realized that I have no control over what people think about me. I only have control over what I think about myself. And so as I started really looking internally, that basic concept really helped me to decide that I can make changes to my life, maybe shocking to other people. Like, for instance, I'll tell you that when I left my company that I started, a lot of my friends were like, "What are you doing? Like, what is going on? Like, do you need help? Do you need a psychologist? Because I can refer one to you, because you're doing crazy things right now." And I realized that, they were crazy to them, but it wasn't crazy to me. And if I had the courage to stick with my convictions, then I could actually make a change that might lead me to down a better path. So that's the first one. The second one in Stoicism that I really reflect on a lot is something that Seneca, who's another Stoic philosopher, said, which is, we suffer more often in imagination than we do in reality. And I
Yeah,
think, that's it's such a great quote. It encapsulates
really
so
deep
many great,
quote.
yeah, really great things, because ultimately our mind is our own strength, but it's also our own enemy. And we
Yeah.
imagine things, and we get wrapped around things that haven't happened, and may not happen, or we think could happen, or we think about what other people think about us. And, the reality, of course, is never as bad as you think it's going to be. The implications of making change, of changing your life, sounds so dramatic, like, oh my God, I might be without a job, and you get scared, and then you don't do it. But when you do it, you realize that, hey, it really wasn't that bad. And they say necessity is the mother of invention. When you have to make change and you have to make it work, you find a way to make it work, right? So
Mm.
there's just a lot about Stoicism that really returns the power of your life to you. and to your, your ability to engage the world around you as it happens and not get wrapped up in a lot of anxiety about woulda, coulda, shoulda, mighta, whatever the term is. And you really have the power to kind of control your own destiny. I think that's the beauty part of Stoicism, that even though I was an entrepreneur and I was building things, I never fully embraced that idea because I was actually doing things more for other people than I was doing it for myself.
All right, really fantastic response. So, Ken, you co-founded Mission Edge to help nonprofits. So, did your own experience of feeling empty in the for-profit world change how you approached building a social enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Much of the business experience I had really prepared me for success in this endeavor that I'm working on now as running a nonprofit, helping other nonprofits. But the business model that we have is very much based on, um, it's essentially we're a consulting firm and we help other nonprofits with their operations. But what really is the difference is that everything we do is mission based. Everything we do is based on the values that we put forward, which is what is good for the community, what is good for our customers, what is good for the wider kind of world. And the decisions that we make financially and the things that we do from a business standpoint are really based on doing the right thing, not only by the customer, but also by the community. So I think what has really been imbued in my organization now is a real kind of value system that reflects kind of the business that I always wanted to run, but couldn't in the for-profit world because when you have investors or you have shareholders or whatever, I mean, they're looking for a return and that's why they give you money. Like I get that, right? That's fine. But in the nonprofit space, you're driven not necessarily by financial return, but by the goodness that you're doing and the value you're creating for the community, and that kind of really resonates with me. So it's been a lot of fun to do. We've been around for this is our 13th year, and we've had a lot of impact. And I've been able to kind of write a different story now. I feel like the story that I'm writing is one that I'm proud of, and one that I feel like will leave some goodness behind.
All right. So you write about the virtue ethos, wisdom, courage, discipline, and justice. So which of these four virtues is the most difficult, or should I say, was the most difficult for you to cultivate during your own, dark nights of the soul?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that I don't know if one of them was harder than the others. I think, the wisdom kind of is the cornerstone of Stoic virtue. I think that's the one that I think I struggled with the most over time, because really what wisdom is fundamentally is about, knowing what is important, knowing what you should be caring about, right, is kind of the cornerstone of wisdom. What are the important things in life to be focusing on? And I think a lot of times, myself included, and this is part of my sort of that dark period that I had, was I was think focused on the wrong things. I think a lot of people focus on money as an end, like it's a goal, when really it should be a means to some end, but money itself shouldn't be the end goal, right? I think a lot of times we get wrapped up in this idea that, oh, I want to make a lot of money. I think I was probably subject to that to some degree in my career, not really realizing that's not really what my end goal should be. I should be thinking about something bigger than that. And so I struggled, I think, to fundamentally, and I think maybe that obituary moment that I talk about is sort of wisdom kind of coming to me and saying, "Hey, I think I've been caring about the wrong things, and I need to change my focus." And that then kind of leads directly into the next virtue, which is courage. And it does take some courage to uproot your life, upend your life, turn your life over, quit your company, quit your job, whatever it is, and actually make an affirmative change. And so, but I think once I found the wisdom, I did find the courage to do it. It was messy, I mean, I'm not for 1 minute sitting here saying it was easy or it was smooth. It was messy. And, it did require discipline, and it did require, some determination to see it through because, like everything in life that's worthwhile, it doesn't happen right away. Right. So, but I think the virtue, so I've written this book called The Virtue Ethos, and it's really about building virtue into your life and trying to figure out how to uncover kind of the life you really want to live, and then how to imbue virtue into that. And the virtues give you the power to kind of make change, to behave in a way which is to the benefit of yourself and others. And the ethos part is how do you create the habits and form the sort of structure around actually putting this into your life and living it on a daily basis. And I think it's the result of the struggle that I've had over my life of focusing on the right things and also creating a practice around it so that I could actually do it on a regular basis. Because a lot of times we will have an epiphany that, um, oh, I should be doing this, and this is probably, a better reflection of my values. But then, you do it once or twice, and then you get sidetracked, and then life gets in the way, and then suddenly now you're not doing it anymore, even though it's important to you. And I think part of the challenge here is to create kind of a practice and a structure that and form habits that will allow you to live it more fully. And that's kind of what this book's about.
All right. So, Ken, after leaving the traditional CEO path to find meaning through stoicism and service, I'd like to know, what does being successful truly mean to you now?
Well, it's funny. Define success as the impact I have on the lives of others. And I'm not minimizing the fact that that you need to make money and you have to put food on the table and pay your rent and whatever. But to me, the money is kind of a secondary kind of reward. The biggest reward and success for me is that I have people who work for me, who love their job, who are doing good work every day in the community, that I'm helping others find their purpose, that I'm, doing something that helps the community on a daily basis. It's not that I don't struggle sometimes with whether I'm doing enough or whether I'm doing the right things. I mean, we all kind of have those moments of self-doubt, and those will probably never go away, but I'm able to kind of put that into a framework now where I realize that a lot of the things that I am doing are worthwhile. And of course, you could always do more. But I feel like success is one of those things where it has to come from inside. You have to convince yourself that the things you're doing are worthy and not have it be reflected simply by the amount of money you're making or by the awards you're receiving or about the external validation that you're getting.
All right. So, for our listeners who want to learn more about the Virtue Ethos and your other books, or connect with you perhaps, so where is the best place for them to go?
Yeah, so you can I have a website. It's kendavenport.net. It's basically my author website, so you can learn about my books there. I do speaking engagements and I do some coaching. If anybody's interested, you can learn more about it there. My company Mission Edge is at missionedge.org. So if you have a nonprofit that needs help, you can contact me there. And, yeah, and otherwise, my call to action really, my books are on Amazon if you're interested,
Mm.
but I would say anything you can read about Stoicism, I think is a valuable first step in starting to create a framework where you really can take more control over your daily life and, create some habits and some practices that will serve you well in the future. And so I just encourage everybody to kind of take a look at it. It may not be for you, but it's really good exposure to know that it's there, and it will definitely create some thought provoking moments for you.
Oh, great. Ken, it's has been a really profound conversation with you, and I am truly excited and honored to have you on the show today, sir.
Thank you, Ezekiel. Great questions. Love the conversation, and thanks for giving me an opportunity.